Hi, everyone. My name is Olivia Owens, and I am the creator and general manager of I Fund Women of Color, which is a platform dedicated to supporting diverse entrepreneurs get access to capital through both crowdfunding and grants, expert business coaching on all the topics they need to know about, and a community where they're able to connect and navigate their businesses together. I'm super excited to be here today because I truly believe that when it comes to the conversation of equality, funding and money has to be a part of the discussion. And today I am joined by three amazing founders who successfully crowdfunded on I Fund Women to raise funds for their businesses. And we're going to talk about the realities of accessing capital for your business, the realities of being a woman of color navigating this journey as well, and what it means to be a great ally. So excited to jump in. And I'm going to let these amazing women introduce themselves, starting with Christina Calla, who is the founder of the Why Women Project.
Thank you so much, Olivia, and thank you to Amy and Nancy Harrington and the Passionistas Project. I'm so excited for our conversation today. So I'll give you sort of the quick background. The Why Women Project started as a community of professionals in media and advertising who were women, and it came out of sort of a necessity when I was in corporate. So I spent about 10 years producing branded content in publishing on the advertising side at Condé Nast and Time Inc. And I realized when trying to staff for a beauty production shoot that would have been nice to have an all-women crew behind the scenes, that there wasn't a single female photographer who we had previously worked with. And asking around to colleagues, no one could come up with a name in time. And I just thought, I never want to be in this position again. You know, I'm in a position to hire production. And if we are creating content for a female audience, it would resonate a lot more if it was created, you know, from the perspective of women who consume beauty products or whatever the, you know, end product might be. So I started it as a community, and over the last couple of years, we've taken on clients and we've serviced as a content production house clients that range between like women-owned agencies to support their clients, as well as our own small business clients and brand clients. So we're kind of a content studio, a creative community, and we source talent from the collective. So it's all about hiring more women.
I love it. Amazing. And that's one way to push towards equality, by having the list of people that you can pull into the room when you're in that position of power. So absolutely love what you're doing and excited to dig a little deeper as we move forward. I'd like to pass it over to Taylor, who is the designer of the Taylor J collection. Tell us a little bit about your business and how you got to where you are, Taylor.
Thank you. Hi, ladies. I'm Taylor. My background, I have a background in retail. I started off with a brick and mortar storefront in Los Angeles. And after working with women and discovering that they all just want comfort, I decided to start my own clothing line. So it was a very organic beginning. I'm a self-taught designer. Quickly, we built a strong community of comfort, I would say.
Hey, Taylor, it's a little hard to hear you. I think your connection might be a little spotty. Not sure if you can switch to a different network, but it's a little hard to hear you.
Really? How about now? Can you hear me now?
Test one more time.
Okay, let me try. Hello?
Okay, it's a little better. How about you play around with it? Let me pass to Kim, and we'll come back to you.
Come back to you? Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Hey, Kim, want to jump in and share a little bit about Lamique Beauty? Kim, looks like you're on mute if you want to unmute.
Can I have the mic now?
Yes.
So, hey, everybody. Thank you to the Passionistas Project for having me. I'm so happy to be on here with you, Olivia, and Christina and Taylor. But I'm Kim Roxie, Kimroxie, and I'm the founder of Lamique Beauty. LAMIK is an acronym that stands for Love and Makeup and Kindness, LAMIK. And we are a clean color cosmetic line that can fit my skin tone, all skin tones, and we are here to clean up the beauty industry. So that's the point of LAMIK. And I got started in college just at a makeup counter, working a part-time job, not really thinking a whole bunch of it, but fell in love with making women feel good about themselves. Like that gave me all of the purpose I needed in life. And so when I got ready to graduate, I was like, I was going to open up my own makeup shop in my hometown of Houston. And good things come out of Houston, Lizzo, Beyonce, I'm just saying. So we started my store in Houston, and I ran a brick and mortar for 14 years. And in 2018, I decided to concentrate on my CPG project of the actual cosmetics. And I went to iFund Women in 2019, and we'll dive more into that. But I'm just here to have a good time and hope that I can serve in any way as around answering questions or anything like that. But thank you for having me.
Amazing. Thanks for being here, Kim, and thanks for sharing your story and kind of leading into the next piece. Kim, I will say your video is a little spotty. Not sure if turning off your camera might help the connection come through a little better. But I want to pass it back to Christina. And so you started Why Women Project. You started by building this community and this list of creatives. How did the funding play into this? From the very beginning, how were you funding this business? How did you decide when crowdfunding was going to be the right moment for you? And kind of what was that experience like?
Yeah, so I will say that I self-funded it for a long stretch. When we started out, I was in a corporate position. So I had a full-time role, and I think that's like, if you have an idea and you have that financial stability, that's a great time to utilize the full-time position to start your side hustle, because I did have, steady income to fund the weekend production shoots and create content and get the website up and launch that. So self-funded it from the beginning. And then I left my corporate role. I left corporate environment kind of for good. And that was when it got kind of scary. Like, this is real now. Like, I have to monetize and get clients. So that was when we shifted to a client model, so we could have a sustainable business model, and started servicing clients. And then about, it was like 2019. So this is like a 2-year journey to that point. I wanted to kind of get some outside funding, and I just felt so frustrated by the mountain that it seemed it would be to ever get to a VC level. I'm not a female founder. I'm a solo founder. VCs don't really prefer either of those. So that's like 2 points against me. But, also recognizing that I am a white woman. So I get 1 point there, but it's still like, I think it's only around 3% of women who get VC funding ever in the course of their business. So someone from iFund Women reached out to me, and it felt really good for someone to recognize that there was this audience of this group of women entrepreneurs out there who, have these financial needs, and no one else seemed to really think of us as a group of entrepreneurs, even though women are the fastest growing group of entrepreneurs, and Black women are at the top of that list. So it just doesn't make sense. This disparity is huge. So after speaking with, actually it was, I think Zaina from your team, who I love and has coached me since I became a member, Zaina, and then I ended up meeting Karen at a pitch day where the iFund Women team was pitching, and it kind of just made sense. I ended up writing an article about like what the journey was and what the options were. If anyone wants to look that up, the blog is called The Slowdown but I wrote about sort of the options and how I Fund Women as an alternative to VC was my best option, you know, being a small solo founder, women-owned business.
And how much were you able to raise in the end?
Our goal was 25K, and we hit that goal and surpassed it a little bit. We were almost at like 27K. It's like 26 and change. So
amazing.
It was so exciting, and it was so empowering, because it validates your product. It validates that there's an audience for what you have, and it's just something that I never would have dreamed of, I think, probably if someone hadn't reached out to me. So I'm indebted to the I Fund Women team. Love you.
Well,
love
we love to see your growth and your success. Let's jump back to Taylor and see about Taylor J Collection and how crowdfunding went for your business.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yay, okay. I'm like, Zoom drama, right? I would have to agree with you, Christina. I love I Fund Women. It's like our positive female gang, right? It's like so empowering. We crowdfunded in 2018, and of course, you know, I am a Black woman, and funding has always been a really challenging for, you know, my community. And so opportunities like, you know, crowdfunding was something that I always had I was always watching and paying attention to. But when I was introduced to I Fund Women, I was like, okay, this is a no-brainer. This is amazing. And then all the coaching that's available, all the support, it just made sense. And so we were able to raise over 30K. And on top of raising funds, we were able to create a stronger community. We were able to test out a product. We tested out plus sizes to see if that was our market. And it just was successful all around. And we just actually did another one this year during the pandemic. We launched a pivoting campaign for mask making. And so that was successful as well. And so for me, crowdfunding, I think, is always the smart choice. It's always a good way to test your product, build your community, of course, raise funds, just to kind of have a place for women. And just the fact that, Olivia, you're providing a space for women of color, who a lot of the times we're often like of course, we're leading and opening businesses, and we are doing it, but it's also still really hard for us. There's so many businesses that are Black owned that are not recognized, that are not seen, that are not supported. In more ways than just financially. So platforms like I Fund Women give us the opportunity to network and to be seen and to, raise money, of course. So my experience was great, and we'll do it again and again.
I love it. I love it. And that's one of the questions we typically get is, can you crowdfund multiple times? And the answer is absolutely yes, as long as you have a new initiative that you're looking for your community to come support you on. So you are a perfect example of that. And Kim, coming back to you, and really how you leveraged crowdfunding as you are trying to get your product to market.
Yeah, so we did our first crowdfunding raise on I Fund Women last year, fall of last year. And, I'm gonna be honest and say that I was had my hand on the trigger, but just wouldn't never pull it. I was just yeah, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. And then it's I'm gonna do it. And that's kind of what I was doing for a minute. But to the point that both of the ladies said that, it's really empowering once you do it. So we did a raise for, our goal was 30,000, and we surpassed our goal. And I think we did 44,000 or something like that, something to that nature. And, I think that sometimes when you're so used to sort of getting told no, because right before our fundraise, I was having a meeting with investors and stuff like that. Sometimes, it can kind of damage your whole confidence sometimes, especially because that was my first time going out to try to do a raise. And so when I found out about I Fund Women, I was like, but all of my customers are phenomenal women. I was like, I need to tell them what's going on in this funding world. And they didn't even know. They didn't know anything about the statistics that you just talked about. They didn't know that the average, Black woman business is only doing like $24,000 a year, or whatever the case might be. Like, they didn't know, even though they might have been going through their own struggles. So they went, they funded, they were a part, and it sort of just made it bigger than what I even thought. So we use that money to launch our e-commerce site and do all that and be right on time for when the pandemic hit. Our site was ready to go. And then we started crowdfunding, like pre-orders for new products. Like Taylor talked about doing it the second time. We did that again, and then we were able to get some more sales for pre-orders, which was great. And so I think that, I'm not going to just act like, I just saw it and I was like, yeah, I'm just going to do it. And I went and did it. No, I procrastinated for a minute. But because of the community that like iFund Women is building, I think that it made me look at it and say, you know what, I can give it a try. And as long as I try it, then the failure is not even an option.
I love it. And I think that sentiment definitely resonates with many of the women that we work with, because the reality is asking for money is extremely uncomfortable. It's an unnatural feeling. But I think what all of you did very appropriately was understand that crowdfunding was not about asking for charity or donations for your business. It was about, you knew that you had a certain value to add to your community. And so you decided to put that out there and say, hey, in exchange for cash for pushing my business forward, this is what I can offer you. And I think it's that mindset shift that allows you to kind of push past that anxiousness and just go out there and make the ask confidently. And Kim, you're kind of bringing me to my next question in regards to the statistics around Black women founders accessing capital. Only 0.06% of venture capital dollars, and average revenues of 24K. And I think that there's a lot of question around, like, what are the unique obstacles that you feel you have faced as you're going through this experience in building a platform for women of color? Of course, that's what we were looking at. Why do women of color not see crowdfunding as an accessible source of funding for them? And part of it is because they're not seeing people who look like them doing it and having success. And so how are we celebrating and highlighting those stories, i.e. having amazing founders like Kim and Taylor here tell their stories? But also part of crowdfunding is your network. And if you feel like you don't have a strong enough network to turn to, how do you overcome that obstacle? And so those are some of the things that are top of mind for me and what I'm hearing from the community. But I would love to hear from both of you on your experience, and I'll start with Taylor.
Okay, so to answer the question, basically, how do we kind of get the word out so people feel a little bit more comfortable, giving crowdfund a try? That's the question, correct?
So more so, like, what are the unique obstacles that you felt as you're building your business when it comes to accessing capital, and why you've chosen to self-fund or use crowdfunding as opposed to going other routes?
Okay. Well, most definitely, just even get an opportunity to have a conversation with someone, whether it be an investor or even a bank, even truly taking you into your business into consideration. Those are always obstacles. I've always experienced those obstacles still until this day, and so those things, they do affect your confidence in a lot of ways. And so I think, that's why, you struggle pulling the trigger with a crowdfund, because you're not feeling so confident. You're not sure if is my product, is it worthy? Like, is it me? And so a lot of the challenges it's always a financial challenge. And then, meeting someone, they may have access to investors or an investor, and trying to have a conversation and getting that second meeting or that formal meeting to actually have that discussion. Sometimes that's almost impossible. And when you do have it, it doesn't really always go anywhere, and so, and you see all these small startups that get funded all the time with millions of dollars, and then they're gone in a year. They've got, and you're just like, oh my gosh, I really honestly have customers. Like, I'm actually producing a product that sells to people, and so it's very disturbing. And although it should probably make you feel like I just want to give up, it oftentimes for me, it's just like, okay, let's just keep figuring this out. Let's just keep going. It's almost Like it's a motivator, right? But that the financial approval and acceptance from banks and investors, that is a huge, huge issue in the Black community, you know, and it's people can say it is or it isn't, but it's the truth. And just being seen, being heard, being recognized, and seeing that, you know, these people, they're great business. They have great businesses. They have great products, and they deserve someone to give them an opportunity, give them a chance. And, you know, you can sit and wait for that, or you can, you know, make it happen on your own by going directly to the people, going to the consumer, you know, and not only just getting the funding from them and the supporters, but also building up confidence in your product. You know, you're testing it out. Your chances are not as great when you're going to a bank and or an investor, and they want to see numbers. You know, you get to try this out yourself. So those challenges are definitely, they're present. But opportunities like iFund Women and platforms like this, it's a great way to get started and to get going and to kind of build the momentum and get the business going. So when you scale, you actually have something a little bit stronger to take if that is where you're going in the future. And maybe you'll be seen because you have a lot more support. And then also like just getting the word out. Like to this day, I still get so many DMs from people saying, "Oh, I saw you in iFund Women. Can you tell me how that experience was? What should I do?" And I'm just always like, "Hey, definitely do it." Like, it's the best way, you know. And once you get past like that fear, that procrastination, which it all exists. We all have it. It's the best way to start. And then, you know, you kind of go from there, because of course things change in business, but those challenges are definitely present in there. And those are the obstacles I've experienced. So me personally, I'm all about self-funding really right now. That's kind of where I'm at, you know, at this moment. And so I believe in just building your business, building your customer base, building it that way. And if you can get as much funding that you don't go into debt for in the beginning stages, and that is really a smart move, because a lot of times you can get funding, but then longevity, it's not long lasting.
Completely. And I think one of the stats that we always start with is only 1% of founders, regardless of their gender, are raising venture capital. And so if that's true, then that's not the norm. And like, we need to be focused on creating revenue generating businesses. That's what a successful business is, something that makes money. And so I think that point you made, Taylor, is really, really powerful in making that the focus of your business. And then down the line, if investors is something that you want to explore, you feel more confident and empowered and in control, because you get to drive the conversation because you've proved that out for yourself. So I think that's extremely important. And Kim, I'd turn to you in running your own brick and mortar for many years, and then now trying to step into launching your own product line. What would you say some of the unique obstacles you have faced are? Oh, you're on mute, Kim.
When it comes to fundraising, I think, you know, when I started to understand that a lot of the people that I was meeting with, like I would ask them, you know, what more do you need to see, or what is it about? And so then when we start to have more frank conversations, you know, I started to understand that their problem with investing with Black women is not my problem. So that's number one for me, is that I have to lay that burden down. That's not my burden. If people have bias, I would ask people very frankly. I've had conversations with white men that I know personally, and I'm like, they end up coming up with stuff, and then I show them. I was like, you know, that's bias, right? What you're seeing, right? So like we break it down, and then it's like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, you're comfortable with, look like the track pattern, all that stuff. So then I figured out, I was like, okay. Then I started to look and say, women are actually more successful crowdfunding. Right. And so then you start to look and say, oh, so why don't we turn towards the thing that happens, you know, well. I love the Madam C.J. Walker quote that says, you know, I gave myself a start. You know, I got to start by giving myself a start. And that's where I just kind of turn to until I get things, right? And that's why I think that's a big part of why I work so hard in my business, And because I want to go on to actually make changes in this capital situation that's going on. But yeah, because what happens is that I got so much advice sometimes on how to raise sort of like VC funding that it'll start to even change the authenticity of who you are. And that, you know, nothing is worth like crushing your soul, you know? And so for me, I know that I have amazing customers. I know that I have an amazing product. And so if I can have an alternative to still make it happen, that's actually even more sustainable, then that's the way that I need to go. And so being creative, that's what entrepreneurs are. You know, we find a way, we make one. And so that's what I've just sort of been on. And having my product and being online, I've actually wanted to make women up online than it is in person. That's like my whole goal. So I've created, you know, quizzes, and we have virtual makeup try on and all these things that we have going on. And I'm like, hey, they'll take notice. But then when they take notice, the investors or whoever, I'll probably get a better deal anyway. So, you know, it's like one of those things where you try to find other ways to do it, but please do not let someone else's bias or whatever sort of crush you, and you take it on as your burden and you try to figure out how can I get them to fund me. My mama and daddy did not raise a beggar. No.
Yes, go where you're celebrated, not where you're tolerated. Absolutely. I think that's so amazing. And Christina, creating access to equal opportunity is something that is extremely central to the work that you're doing with the Why Women Project. And I would love to hear from you how you ensure that allyship is intertwined in the work that you do and how you feel you're showing up effectively every day.
Yes. So I think the best way to explain our approach to inclusivity is to go back to why we started it. You know, as storytellers, as professional content creators, the collective brings like over a decade of experience creating storytelling from their own unique gaze. So one of our like sort of key messages is storytelling from the feminist gaze. And what that means is like subverting the male gaze, which traditional media and narratives that we've seen forever, you know, our entire lifetimes, from, you know, a white male cis gaze, even when it's been content and stories about women, that's just not true to life. And that's not going to resonate with a customer who, you know, doesn't fit a certain beauty standard or mold or story that we've seen, the tropes that we've seen a million times. So when you bring, you know, a diverse set of storytellers together and give them the mic, pass them the mic and give them ownership to tell their own stories from their lived experience, that I think is what we do that's so powerful. And that's how allyship is sort of built in, is, you know, building a community where the mic can be passed around to underserved voices. So that's one part of it. And the other is hiring. You know, it's, if you go, I guarantee, go into any like corporate environment and there you will find tons of exceptionally talented Black women and women of color who are overqualified and undervalued. And that's the type of woman that we want in our collective and in our community, because she's not getting what she deserves there in terms of career growth. So, you know, we work with contractors and freelancers. So it is a bit of a different, it's a leap from, you know, a full-time to a freelance position. But, you know, that's the type of storyteller that we want to hire to work with our women-owned business clients. It's just more authentic and it creates storytelling that elicits an emotional response. And when you can do that and build a relationship with a consumer or a customer or a client, that's when they buy. That's when they trust you.
It's so true. And I want to give space to show in a really actionable way how I saw you show up as an effective ally. When we invited you to speak on this panel, you said, I would love to participate, but I want to make sure that there's a woman of color represented. And so that is a very tangible, easy way for you to show up. Make sure that you're bringing other people to the table. And I just want to applaud you for that, because I think so often we sit there and wonder, well, what can we do? What can we do? And it's not about even necessarily needing to have a massive platform or anything like that. Leverage the power that you have to create space for other people. So I think that's really powerful. And I think we can jump into some of the questions that we've gotten from the audience. The first one being, what advice do you give to women who are on the verge of giving up to inspire them to keep going? And if any of you, I'm sure, have been in the midst of running your business and hit that point of, I'm ready to throw in the towel, any words of wisdom on how you kind of pushed to keep going? I'll leave that open to anyone who wants to chime in.
I can definitely answer that. Me, just my beginning in life, I was a teen mom, so I'm so used to, persevering, pushing through. And so if you do not feel like you want to quit at least 10 to 20 times as an entrepreneur, then I don't think you're really an entrepreneur. That's just normal, especially in these times. But the way that you overcome is you have to remember what your purpose is and what your purpose is. Your purpose is the main ingredient. You know what you're doing, what you provide, and the people. I'm always preaching about customer service. I think a lot of times people forget about those things, but those are like, I call my customers my bosses. They're like, those are our bosses. We work for them. And so you have a responsibility. We've started something, and every obstacle, you just have to figure it out. That's it. You just figure it out. Every challenge, you figure it out. And so one day is different than the next, but your purpose will fuel you, and it will keep you going. And you just have to believe in what you're doing. And I always tell people when they ask about starting something, make sure it's something that you were really, truly dedicated to. And would you do this? Would you do it for free? If you know that you can do this, you would do this for free, then you've got that passion there, and nothing's going to stop you, because now you just have to figure out how to make money doing it. So definitely wanting to give up is a normal feeling, but don't sit in it. Never sit in any empty space. That's my advice.
I love that. And I remember towards the beginning of the pandemic, working with our entrepreneurs who were trying to figure out how do they show up in their business in this space and be their most authentic selves. And it kind of became this question is what I'm doing in alignment with my values and what I believe? And so in those really tough moments, you can say, no, I'm able to leverage this thing that I'm creating to tap into this conversation and push for the change that I want to see. And I think that purpose and that alignment is so, so key in keeping you going. And me personally, being able to work at iFund Women and create access to capital for our entrepreneurs in a time like this, and give grants to women of color in a time like this, that's how I'm waking up every single day and showing up as my full self, regardless of the insanity that's going on around us. Christina, Kim, do either of you have anything to share on pushing through?
Yeah, I was just going to say, to your point, like of what you're providing, like if you give up, you will break the blessing for somebody else. Like you're like the link, you're the connection. And for a lot of our businesses, we're solving real problems. So if you do stop, then I don't get the solution. Whatever your solution is, whatever your solution is, your thing is. So you also got to think of it maybe not from a selfish point of view. So maybe not give up your idea of maybe how it's going to happen. So I am going to tell you to give up. Give up that idea of what that little dream fantasy that you got in your head, that how it's supposed to go like this and go like that, and then it's going to go like that and go like that. No, that shit gonna go like this, right? And so it's like, give that up. So I do say give up, right? Give that up, but then give in to your purpose, like Taylor said, like give in to that, like I mean, Christina, you look at the work she's doing, like, then if she stops doing that work, then this inclusion, this everything that she's doing will then be a missing part of society. So you just got to remember that whatever you're doing, like we're talking about, like you said, pandemic has reminded us if our business even has purpose and value, is it essential, right, to people's lives? And if it is, then go in and say, hey, you know what, if I stop, then I might stop. I'm stopping the solution for somebody else. So stop being selfish. How about that? Zero selfishness.
I love that. And I think it's so true. Even Taylor, in the example of the women who are reaching out to her saying, I saw you crowdfunded. What was that experience like? If she hadn't done that, she wouldn't be able to pay forward that expertise and that value. And so, yeah, there are ripple effects to the work that we're doing. And I think that's what's so interesting about kind of this concept of the types of businesses that women entrepreneurs start. They are creating businesses that are going towards the betterment of our community inherently, and everything that we're building. And so knowing that and holding on to that and staying true to that, I think is how we push past our own stuff to keep going. I love it. Another question is, we're in difficult financial times right now. If someone can't afford to donate to a crowdfunding campaign, are there other ways we can support women-owned businesses? I love this question. I think I've seen memes on Instagram about how a share goes a long way, a like goes a long way. I'd love to hear from you, kind of, what are some of the ways that you've had people show up for you that wasn't necessarily monetary?
I can answer. Sharing is definitely great. That there's no greater benefit than a customer or a person sharing with their networks. And even maybe volunteering to help. You know, when on crowdfunding, like the most important piece that you need when you're launching is you need a team. So if you really believe in the company or the person, and you're just like, I wish I could give them $1,000 or $10,000, but you just want to give your time, then that is even greater. So definitely sharing and showing support, and that's what I think is beneficial.
I love it. How about you, Christina?
I would say, honestly, the same answer about sharing, because I'm a content strategist. So that's one of the most excellent content strategies out there, with, how many brands are on social media and selling directly on social media, that you never know who is going to be the audience who has the money to donate. So if you can share it, if you could do strategic partnerships. So that's another content strategy that we share with our clients. In the beginning, when you're building something, and especially if you have a campaign going for a crowd fund with iFund Women, do free strategic partnerships where you're sharing your platform, do a takeover, do a Instagram live, and have a conversation that's going to be relevant to the audience that you're sharing with. So this is kind of like from both ends. If you have a platform but you don't have the ability to donate, offer that platform, and even if you don't have a platform, just a simple share. These are proven content strategies that have grown small brands into big businesses.
Yeah, partnership. Oh, go ahead, Kim.
Yeah. I was just about to say, like, I can think of a whole list of things that you can do. One thing that helped me a lot was calling like my personal contacts. I know a lot of people, right? But everybody knows a lot of people, really, but we don't get a chance to like check up on these people and call them. And so I had some friends that volunteered with me, and we did like a little phone bank, and we like literally called all of these people that we knew and that I knew, and they called on my behalf. And I remember one of my friends that helped me call, she was out of a job at the time. She was like, that's what she said. She was like, I don't have any money. She's like, you know how bad I want to donate. How can I? And I was like, okay, call these 20 women. Come to my mom's house. We went to my adopted mom's house. I was like, come to my adopted mom's house. We're going to call these people. She's going to fix us some lunch, and we're going to sit up there and call them. And she like prayed and was just like, I hope that these calls make a difference. And it was funny because maybe only 2 people picked up the phone, but people followed up. And I was like, I just want to let you know, you helped me raise $2,000. And that was from her, because if she wouldn't have called, I would have never got a chance around to call each one of those people and tell them my story and da 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 da. And so she was able to do that, and it was so effective. So, you know, it's a lot of things we actually can do. And once you get out of the mindset like that, if I can't just donate in that way, but you know people, everybody knows people. And you sort of can take that on and say, and something else that helped me a lot was my friends, like, or people that I knew, their book club. They're like, well, you want to come say hi to my book club? Yes, I will be at your book club. And I would say hi, and I'm gonna tell them about this campaign I'm doing. So, you know, you might be in a book club or something. It could be 8 people, but just let your friend or whoever is doing the crowdfunding, let them hop on the Zoom and say, hey, and tell them about the business. And then, you know, $5 from 8 people or $25 from 8 people. I'm just saying, like, it can add up. It's so many ways. So already have a mindset that you can help, and just say another way that I can do it.
I love it. And I do think part of going into a crowdfunding campaign is assuming an abundance mindset, and that there is more than enough out there for me, and I just need to go get it, instead of coming from a perspective of lack. And I think oftentimes we can manifest the lack that we have because we put that energy out there. And so I loved that question of other ways to be able to show up, because I do think that's so important. We have another question that I am super excited to be able to ask. What has been the biggest win that you've had in building your business to date?
I would say the ability to hire more women. And of course that's our mission. So that was the goal we set out to achieve, but it's just an incredible feeling to be able to create a virtuous cycle. And that's like kind of the bow that I would wrap this whole conversation in. Everything that Taylor and Kim are sharing are pieces of that virtuous cycle, that if we pay it forward to our friends who are business owners, who are women, and if we choose deliberately to hire more women in our businesses, that creates inclusivity, because women are actually more likely to hire from a more inclusive standpoint, because they want to see more representation for people like them. And if we shop with women-owned brands, if we need B2B services for our women-owned businesses, shop with a women-owned business. It's like, it just keeps going round and round. And I love the ability to grow with our clients. So if we can provide strategy, marketing strategy, and content that helps smaller women-owned businesses grow, then they get to grow with us, and we can continue to work with them because they can put money back into their businesses. And then in turn, they're affecting the ability to reach more of their female consumers. So it's just kind of this like snowball effect. It just gets wider as we go.
I love that. And I do think when you hear a statistic like less than 3% of venture capital dollars are going to women-owned businesses, you can sit there and be defeated and think we're never going to overcome this. But it is that snowball effect. I think the more intentional that we get about how we spend and how we create opportunity, the more impact and growth we're going to see in a way that we can control it. And the way that we want that control, we desire that control, and we actually do have it. But it's about coming together. And I think that's why community is so rooted in everything that we're all doing, so that we can create those stronger bonds and those deeper connections.
Yes, that's exactly it.
Yeah. And I would say win, no matter what. Like, all I do is win. Like, that's all we do. Like, that's all we do. It's like, all we do is win, no matter what. Like, every day you wake up is a win. Like, we're in the middle of a pandemic, really. Like, you are a Black woman in America with your own business. You are winning. Like, check the boxes. Like, just sort of, and so for me, that winning, like when you asked that question, girl, all I can hear was DJ Khaled, like win, no matter what. Like that's all I can hear, because that's like one of my motivational songs I get ready to in the morning. Like that's just where it's at. You got to know everything worked together for good, you know? And so when I think about winning, I know one time I got an email from my customers, and she didn't know that I was writing a letter to my store clients, letting them know that I was going to be closing the store, and to concentrate on, you know, doing this e-commerce and like really taking the business to the next level. And so I got this email that said, hey, Kim, I want to let you know, because I was making small batches of products for my customers at my store. And she said, yeah, I want to let you know that the lip gloss that I've been using from you is the only lip gloss I've ever tried that doesn't cause me to get upper respiratory infections. And she was like, so I want to order 12, like, you know, she like make this like huge order. And I started crying. And I'm like, when I've talked about making clean beauty products and all of that and making non-toxic makeup, sometimes people think that's just like some mythical thing that you're coming up with. This is a real problem. And for her to say, you know, that it stopped her from getting upper respiratory infections, like I'm making that kind of difference. We winning, like, you know, like we winning, you know. So it's just those kind of moments that give you. But in all honesty, being on this panel with y'all, you know, knowing you, Olivia, has been a win. You know what I mean? Like everything will win, you know. The wins are coming all the time, and you can't always just be looking for like this mountaintop experience. Sometimes you winning in the valley, and that's all it is, you know. So yeah.
Well, that is quite the Friday evening energy. I'm feeling that. How about you, Taylor? What's been a win for you?
I love your energy, Kim.
Seriously.
I'm gonna play that song when we're done off this phone call. I have several things to say right now. First off, you know, I have been in fashion for a long time. You know, I started off as a brick and mortar store owner. And so I know you guys didn't get to hear my beginning because my signal was so bad, but, you know, I'm a store owner turned designer. And so for me, I always dreamed of having a successful e-commerce store. Like e-commerce was the goal, right? But brick and mortar was what I was familiar with. So I always went back to a brick and mortar because it's where I was able to sustain the business. And, you know, I have the built-in clientele and all of that. And so here we are. We had just signed a new lease on our space when the pandemic hit. And so after doing a pop-up in the space for 6 months, we locked in a lease. And so I'm like, oh my goodness, we have like real rent. We're in a super amazing location in Oakland, California. You guys know what our rent looks like. And the fact that not only were we able to pivot during a pandemic with what we had, you know, I made masks from recycled fabric that we made from a collection the previous year. We were able to do that. And on top of that, one of the most rewarding things I've experienced is my daughter is 26 years old and she is my co-founder, forced partner. And I forced her to be my business partner because she's my daughter. But I have watched her develop into a true partner of mine during this pandemic. I have watched her truly become like my partner and respect the business that she's watched her mom build and work so hard for. And so just seeing her take leadership and just really be into it and really like, not because I'm forcing her to, but because she sees like, wow, this is real. Mom's business completely has held us together during a pandemic. When I have friends and people I know that businesses are closing left and right, we're growing. And so that has been a huge win for me, just watching that and being able to employ my sister who runs our customer service department, being able to employ the young ladies that are doing my curbside during the week, all the different people that I've been employing, in-house sewers. That is a big deal for me. I'm so used to doing things on my own and doing 10, 15 jobs and not complaining, but just getting it done because I had to figure it out because this is what I felt my calling has been. And then being able to see something that I've always had in place, comfortable clothing that goes a distance, elevated basics, pieces that carry a woman through her journey in life, seeing people actually living through becoming that woman that I've designed for all this time and them actually seeing value in my pieces now and like, whoa, we work from home now. we need Taylor J. Taylor J was made for what is happening to every person right now in the world. That has been rewarding. And then also getting all this PR and press and allyships and things, getting attention that I didn't even have to go after. Like being in Forbes and all these different platforms that me, a Black woman-owned business, that probably would have never paid me any attention. Those are all big blessings. Those are wins. I know I'm inspiring my community. I know that people are looking at me and they're like, wow, okay, she had one thing she did. She was consistent. She didn't give up. And so Kim, winning is exactly what you said it best. And wins are not always great. When you're sometimes you're losing when you're winning, even though it seems like a losing situation, because you're learning and those blessings are just building up. And so I just feel so grateful right now. Of course, it's challenging. It's hard when you have a lot of relationships with other entrepreneurs and they're struggling. You don't necessarily want to sit and celebrate when other people are suffering right next to you, but you just have to sit in gratefulness and make sure that you are able to not only grow within yourself, but also inspire and reach back and hand that whatever that thing is called, pass it down, pull someone else up, right? And that's how we all win. And that's what's been missing for so long, especially for Black businesses. We've been so this is the time. This is the time. It might be a hard time, but it is a winning time. And I have to keep riding that what you said, Kim. So those are my personal emotional feelings during this crazy time.
Well, as a young woman who watched my mom build her business my entire life and crowdfunded on I Fund Women, and that's how I found out about it. I love that you've watched your daughter blossom into such an amazing partner in this business. That's beautiful. So we're getting close to time. And I want to close this conversation out by giving you all the chance to make the ask. What do you need right now? How can we show up for you in this time?
So I'll get it kicked off, and I gotta talk to Taylor about this 26-year-old, and she over there looking like she's 28. So, but for my ask, I would ask you to go to I Fund Women and search the Lamique Beauty campaign and get your life. Okay, get your life. Get you some mascara. This brand new mascara that we're launching that's on pre-order. Get your eyeshadow, blush, and highlighter palette that's on pre-order. And get I got one of the glosses on today. You feeling that? Yeah, that one. It's on pre-order, okay? The lip gloss trio. And I told you how the lip gloss saving lives out there. I told you. So get your pre-order on your lip gloss trio. So get you some makeup. But get you, because now we're doing all these video conferences, and get you some Taylor J, wear that, wear your comfortable clothes, and then beat that face, okay? So yes. I think that's what we need to do. And so that's what I would ask, is that you go to the I Fund Women crowdfunding website, look up Lamique Beauty, LAMIK, and get your makeup.
Love it. How about you, Taylor?
Yes. I would definitely say, I'll go back to Christina and platforms like hers and how she is, connecting content creators and writers with small businesses. For us, what was a huge impact were all of the features that we received this year. They were amazing. So, if you have friends who are editors or PRs or people who wouldn't mind, sharing our story, we have an amazing story, and that's a huge deal for us. And it's also it helps the editor as well too, right? Having great stories, but things like that help, as well as going to our site and checking it out, sharing. We are on Instagram at Shop Taylor J, and also our website, which is in the chat box. But I will definitely say, if you have any friends, or if you want to just collaborate and share a story on major platforms, that is a huge deal for us. We really truly benefit from that. And everyone needs to be covered right now. We have amazing, amazing face covers that are cotton. They're beautiful. Super comfortable. Like, they are the most comfortable. The average customer comes back and buys like three times. they keep buying them. And so definitely do that. And then our comfortable clothing, like if you're working from home and you need some comfortable wear that you can also wear out to the store or to an essential dinner or whatever you're doing, or gathering at your home, we've got you covered. So that's how you can benefit and support us.
Amazing. Well, Taylor, we should link up after this too, because I would be happy to share your founder story on our page. We're a small platform, but writers follow us, so you never know.
Thank you, Christina.
Of course, and same to Kim. So I'll share mine. My ask would be, if you are a small women-owned business and you could use some marketing support, some strategy support, we are always looking for new clients to help, and I will offer you this. We do free 15-minute consultations, so just here, I'll drop it in the chat, but just book 15 minutes with us for free, see if it's a fit, or if that's not you, but you know someone who sounds like might benefit from content strategy, content planning, production, working with some women content creators to get your message out. Send the link to them. This is just our Calendly scheduling link. So please share.
Amazing. Thank you all so much for tuning in and being engaged in this conversation. To all of our panelists, I love reconnecting with you and seeing how you all are doing. Thank you for allowing iFund Women to be a small part in your larger journey. And I hope everyone has a nice rest of their Friday.
Thank you.
Too. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for having us. Bye-bye.